Hi, this is Vicki with Crafting for Fun. Today I want to share with you how I made this super simple Christmas card. It is made using a small piece of pattern paper from a paper stack by My Mind's Eye called Be Merry. I have some contrasting cardstock here on which I've used my crimper. I used a label-shaped punch to create an area to display my focal image, which is a snowflake. So let me grab the supplies and I'll show you what you need to make this card. You'll need to begin with a piece of cardstock for your card base. This piece measures 4 1/4 by 11 inches and I scored it in half at 5 1/2 inches to make a standard off-white colored base card. Then I have a piece of pattern paper, again from the Be Merry paper stack by My Mind's Eye, and it measures 4 inches wide by 3 3/4 inch tall. I have a piece of strawberry slush colored cardstock here, which is just a pink that matches one of the designs in my pattern paper. It is 3/4 inch tall and 4 1/4 inches wide. From the same paper stack I have a tiny piece of paper here which measures about 2 1/4 inches long and it is 1/2 inch wide. And then I have scraps of 2 different papers here. One is Soft Sky and the other one is Lost Lagoon. Both of these colors are by Stampin' Up, but they just happen to coordinate with my pattern paper. So again, you'd need to match your papers to whatever pattern paper you're using. For stamp sets, I'm using 2. I am using the Festive Flurry stamp set, and I'm going to use this snowflake image. But again, if you don't have a snowflake stamp, if you don't have this stamp set, you could use another snowflake image or even a punch. And I am using a sentiment from the More Merry Wishes stamp set. I'm going to use this Happy Christmas sentiment, and again you could substitute any sentiment. Now I am fortunate with this stamp set to have, I'm using this stamp, but to also have the framelits, the coordinating framelits that go with it. So that will just make my work easier because I won't have to cut anything out by hand. So let me gather my supplies up and I'll show you how I did this card. Okay, I have my card base folded in half and I have my sentiment stamp here along with some strawberry slush ink which matches my paper. So I'm going to begin by stamping that up because we all know that if you mess up on your stamping you need to either turn your paper over or start over. So I'm stamping my sentiment up near the upper right hand corner of my card. That looks good. So I'm going to put my strawberry slush ink away and my sentiment stamp away and bring in the Lost Lagoon, which is the darker of the cardstocks that I have, and I'm going to need to do some embossing. So for that I'm going to be using Versamark, which is just a sticky ink which allows the embossing powder that I'm going to be using to actually stick to the paper surface. So I would stamp with my Versamark, and there's my snowflake image. I'll show that to you. It kind of looks like a watermark, which sometimes you may just want to stamp with Versamark and leave it like that, but in this case I want to add some embossing powder. So this is just a piece of paper I folded in half, and I have some Winter White embossing powder by Stampin' Up. Now this just happens to be a shade off white, which is why I chose it, because it matches my paper better than the pure white. Tap that off and there is my stamped snowflake with the embossing powder, and now all I would need to do is heat set that by using my heat gun. But in the interest of time, I'm going to set that aside. I have already heated another snowflake image. So I have all of my stamped elements ready to go, but I need to cut this snowflake out before I can move forward with my card. So I'm going to bring in my Big Shot machine, and I talked a little bit about having those framelits to help me cut the elements of my card out. So what I would need to do is I'm going to be using a magnetic platform, but you could also use your Big Shot platform with all of the tabs closed. I am going to put down one clear cutting plate. I'm going to put my stamped image there, and then I'm going to grab my stamp set, and remove my my die. So this is the die that I'm going to be using today. And I'm going to line that up over the top of my stamped and heat set embossed image. And you just take a little extra time there to get it lined up good. I'm going to cover it with another clear plastic plate. And I'm going to roll it through. And what I end up with is a snowflake image that is completely cut out. Just a time saving. You could certainly do that with scissors if you don't happen to have a Big Shot. So, I'm going to bring back all of the parts that I need for my card. So here is my card base. I'm going to begin by taking my pattern paper piece. I'm going to apply adhesive on all sides. And then I'm just going to put that near the bottom of my card. And I'm going to center it from side to side so that I have even borders of the off-white showing on all sides. Then I'm going to take my piece of strawberry slush paper. Again, this is 3/4 of an inch by 4 1/4. Oops. I'm going to hold my paper crimper closed. And I'm just going to run that through. And so it gives me a corrugated look. I don't know whether you can see that. It gives me a corrugated look, but the corrugations run the width of the card. I could certainly have fed that through in the opposite direction, and I have done that many times. But this time I just decided to go with them running horizontally across the card. So I'm going to put the adhesive down, and I'm going to add this piece. And it kind of covers up where those two areas meet. Now I'm going to use a punch. This is the decorative label punch by Stampin' Up, but there's certainly no reason you couldn't use another punch if you have something different. And I'm going to take this little scrap of soft sky colored paper, which is just almost exactly the width that I need. And I'm going to punch out one of those label shapes. And I am going to use some dimensionals to pop this up. So I'm going to put one at the top and one at the bottom. Oops. Sorry. A little sticky. And I'm going to go ahead and center that right in the center. And now I'm going to take my little 1/2 inch by 2 1/4, 2 1/4, 2 1/2, just kind of a little scrap, and I'm going to basically fishtail the ends of that. And if you've not seen me do this before, I'll slow down. I'm going to cut in the center, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to go to the corner, and I'm going to cut from the corner to the center. Then I'm going to go to the opposite corner, and I'm going to cut from the opposite corner towards the center. And what that will leave me is a little fishtailed piece. And I'm going to go ahead and add adhesive on the back of this and apply it right over the center there. There we go. And now I'm going to take my snowflake piece and I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back. And the reason I did the snowflake embossed in white on the darker color was basically so that they would contrast. Since I'm laying it on top of this lighter blue tag, I needed something that would contrast with the tag. And I wanted to use a color that was also present somewhere else in my design. So I'm just going to add that there. And then I just have one finishing detail that I'd like to add. In the center of this snowflake, I'm going to add one little rhinestone bling. And I have a very simple card. So my card is complete. I do want to show you another card. Let me bring this up close so you can see. So a very simple but cute card. But I want to show you another card that's really made using the same kind of formula. That's this card. For this card, I used the same size of patterned paper on the bottom of my card, and my strip of paper here in the center, instead of crimping it where the little corrugations run horizontally, I crimped it where they run vertically. I used a different shape of label behind my center element. I have a little scrap of green there that I've fishtailed on the end, and my focal image is a butterfly, and I've added a completely different sentiment and in a different location. So you can see that this card is very much like my Christmas card, only with different elements and different papers. So this particular, I call it a pattern, but this pattern of putting papers together, this way of doing it, is a kind of a go-to for me if I need to produce a card quickly. And I have a pattern paper that I like. I just gather up bits and pieces of scraps of other papers that are reflected in my pattern paper, and I have all of the elements that I need to make a quick and easy card. The hardest thing is deciding what to use for your focal image. So if you have any great stamps or framelits that you'd like to use there, or punches, that works great as a focal image. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions, please email me at craftingforfun@gmail.com or check out my blog, craftingforfun@blogspot.com, for additional craft ideas. Thank you.